There's a difference between a leader who was cruel and a leader who reshaped the world through pure, calculated destruction. Today, we're talking about the second kind. 5 people who didn't just cause death, they industrialized it. Some of them built empires. Some of them had ideologies. Some of them had towers made of skulls. And the scariest part? Most of them believed they were doing something right. This is the top 5 most brutal leaders in history. Let's get into it. Number 5. Attila the Hun. And before you say I've heard of him before, I don't think you understand what this man actually did. The Huns were already terrifying before Attila, a nomadic people out of Central Asia, fast, brutal, impossible to predict. But Attila turned that into something else entirely. Something organized, something with a strategy. He came to power sharing control of the Hunnic Empire with his brother Bleda. And for a while, that worked. Until it didn't. Attila had his brother killed. Just like that, sole ruler. And the moment that happened, things escalated fast. His approach to warfare wasn't just conquest, it was psychological. He didn't just want to win. He wanted people to be afraid before he arrived. And it worked. Cities across the Balkans started emptying out the moment word spread that Attila was moving. People abandoned everything, their homes, their livestock, just to get out before he showed up. He burned through more than 70 cities across the Eastern Roman Empire. Some Roman citizens genuinely believed the world was ending. And here's the detail that gets me. He didn't do this because he was out of control. He did it on purpose. Terror was the tool. The destruction was the message. He earned the nickname Scourge of God, and the people calling him that genuinely meant it. They thought his arrival was divine punishment. That's the level of fear we're talking about. At his peak, Attila launched a full invasion of Gaul, modern France, and pushed so deep into Western Europe that the Roman Empire genuinely did not know if it was going to survive. Then he turned toward Italy, toward Rome itself. And this is the part that sounds insane. Pope Leo I rode out personally to meet him, the most powerful religious figure in the Western world, going face to face with the man everyone called the Scourge of God, and somehow negotiated him out of Italy. Nobody fully agrees on why Attila pulled back. Maybe supply lines, maybe disease in his army, maybe the Pope actually got to him. We don't know. What we do know is that Attila died in 453, on his wedding night. A nosebleed, one of the most feared men in human history, taken out by a nosebleed. And the moment he died, his entire empire collapsed, which tells you everything. It was never about the Huns. It was always about him. Number 4. Pol Pot. Most of the names on this list are warlords, conquerors, empire builders, men of violence who came from violent worlds. Pol Pot studied in Paris. He read philosophy. He had ideas about utopia. He came back to Cambodia in the 1970s with a vision, and what he did with that vision is one of the most disturbing things that has ever happened in modern history. In 1975, his movement, the Khmer Rouge, took control of Cambodia. And within days, the entire capital city of Phnom Penh was emptied. 2 million people marched out into the countryside at gunpoint. Hospitals were shut down. Schools were shut down. Currency was abolished. The calendar was reset to year 0. Because that was the plan. Wipe away everything modern, everything Western, everything educated, and rebuild Cambodia as a pure agrarian society from scratch. On paper, it sounds like a radical political experiment. In reality, it was a death sentence for a quarter of the country. Anyone who was seen as a threat to the vision had to go, and the definition of threat kept expanding. Intellectuals, teachers, doctors, Buddhist monks, government workers, and then, and this is where it gets truly unhinged, anyone who looked educated. Wearing glasses could get you killed, because it suggested you could read. Children were separated from their parents and turned into soldiers and informants. Families were told to report each other. The whole system was designed to make everyone afraid of everyone else, all the time. People worked in labor camps from before dawn until after dark on starvation rations. No medicine, no rest. If you slowed down, you were a threat. If you complained, you were a threat. If someone accused you, for any reason, you were taken away. Most didn't come back. Between 1975 and 1979, somewhere between 1.7 and 2 million Cambodians died. Executions, starvation, forced labor, diseases. That's roughly 1 in 4 people in the entire country. The places where the bodies were buried are still called the killing fields. Pol Pot was eventually pushed out when Vietnam invaded in 1979. He spent the next 2 decades hiding in the jungle. He was never tried for what he did. He died in 1998 in his sleep. And what haunts me about Pol Pot isn't the death toll alone. It's that he had a plan, a philosophy. He thought he was building something better. That's what makes it terrifying. Number 3. Genghis Khan. His campaigns killed somewhere between 40 and 70 million people. And in the 1200s, that may amount to 10% of every human being on Earth. Here's how to visualize that. CO2 levels in the atmosphere actually dropped after the Mongol conquests because so many farmlands were abandoned. Forests grew back over them. The destruction was so complete, it showed up in the atmosphere centuries later. Now, Genghis Khan didn't start out as a world-ending force. He was born around 1162 into a world that was already brutal. His father was poisoned by rivals when he was young. His family was abandoned by their clan. He was captured and enslaved. By the time he unified the Mongol tribes and took the title of Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler, he had spent his entire life fighting to survive. And then he made the whole world fight to survive him. His military strategy was devastatingly effective and deliberately terrifying. The Mongols had a simple policy when they approached a city: surrender or disappear. And they kept that promise. The city of Nishapur resisted. When the Mongols were done with it, they reportedly killed everything inside. Then they built pyramids from the skulls as a warning. Cities would send messengers out to surrender before the Mongols even arrived. The fear did half the work. Entire civilizations that had flourished for thousands of years were effectively ended. Persia, Central Asia, Northern China, regions that took centuries to recover. Some never fully did. Now, here's where it gets complicated. Because after the conquest, Genghis Khan established the Pax Mongolica, a period of relative stability that connected East and West through trade. He created religious tolerance across his empire. He built one of the first international postal systems. He banned torture within his own people. So what do you do with that? A man responsible for possibly 10% of humanity dying, who also created conditions for the Silk Road to flourish. History doesn't give you clean answers, but the death toll alone earns him this spot. Number 2. Leopold II of Belgium. This one is different from everything else on this list, because Leopold II never led an army. He never fought a battle. He never personally hurt anyone. What he did was arguably worse. Leopold was the King of Belgium in the late 1800s, and in 1884 he showed up at an international conference in Berlin and convinced European powers and the United States that he wanted to bring civilization and humanitarian aid to the Congo in Central Africa. He called it the Congo Free State. It was his personal property. The whole thing was a lie. Every bit of it. The humanitarian mission was a front for one of the most profitable and brutal extraction operations in history. The main product was rubber, wild rubber, which was worth a fortune at the time, and Leopold needed it harvested. So here's how his system worked. Congolese men were given rubber quotas. A certain amount had to be delivered by a certain date, and if they didn't meet it, this is the part that became infamous. That became photographed. Their hands were cut off, not as a random act of violence, as policy. Overseers were required to prove that their bullets had been used, so they cut off the hands of those they shot. Women and children were taken hostage to force men to work faster. Villages that didn't comply were burned. Entire communities that resisted were wiped out. The death toll from Leopold's Congo Free State between 1885 and 1908 is estimated at 10 million people, half the population of the Congo. Some historians believe it was higher. And the whole time, Leopold was in Belgium, living in palaces, using the profits to build beautiful parks and monuments across Brussels, presenting himself to the world as a philanthropist. He never set foot in the Congo, not once. It was journalists, specifically E.D. Morel and Roger Casement, who blew the whole thing open, who got the photographs out, who made the world see what was actually happening. International outrage eventually forced Belgium to take control of the Congo away from Leopold in 1908. He died the following year, wealthy, comfortable, uncharged. Leopold II is proof that the most monstrous things in history don't always look monstrous from the outside. Sometimes they look like a king who just wanted to help. Number 1. Timur, known in the West as Tamerlane. And I need to start by saying, if you don't know this name, that is a genuine gap in how history gets taught. Because by nearly any measurement, Timur was the single most destructive conqueror who ever lived. He rose to power in Central Asia in the late 1300s. He claimed descent from Genghis Khan. He styled himself as the restorer of the Mongol Empire. And then he exceeded it. His campaigns spanned from India to Russia, from the Middle East to the edge of the Mediterranean. Everywhere he went, he left the same thing behind: towers of skulls. Not metaphorically, literally. He built towers and pyramids from the skulls of the people he killed, as warnings, because Timur didn't just want to win. He wanted every person within 500 miles to know exactly what happened to people who resisted him. The sack of Delhi in 1398. That's the one I want you to really hear. Before the battle even started, before a single soldier from Delhi engaged the Mongols, Timur had 100,000 prisoners executed in a single day, because he was concerned they might cause problems during the fighting. 100,000 people before the battle. Then the battle happened. Then the city fell. By the time Timur was done, Delhi was so completely destroyed that it reportedly took a century to recover. Then he moved on to Persia, to Iraq. Baghdad, which had already been sacked and devastated by the Mongols a century earlier, was sacked again in 1401. Timur reportedly built a tower of 90,000 skulls outside it. Total death estimates from his campaigns: 17 to 20 million people. As a share of the world's population in the late 1300s, some historians believe Timur was responsible for up to 5% of every human alive being killed. Now, here's the part that makes this feel genuinely unsettling. Timur was brilliant. He was a master chess player, a patron of art and architecture. He built stunning mosques and funded poets. He was sophisticated, calculating, and fully in control of everything he did. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't rage. Every skull tower was a decision. Every city sacked was a choice. He built the horror deliberately, because he understood that fear was the most efficient weapon ever created. He died in 1405 on his way to invade China. Still expanding, still unstoppable. He was buried in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, and there's a legend inscribed near his tomb. Open this, and something worse than me will be unleashed upon the world. Soviet archaeologists opened it in 1941. 2 days later, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. You can make of that what you will. 5 people, different centuries, different methods, different ideologies, but the same thing underneath all of it: the willingness to treat human lives as tools, as problems, as numbers. And what I keep coming back to, what I think is the most disturbing thread through all of this, is that none of them thought they were the villain. That's the part that should stick with you.